Welcome to Life Clarifications with Natasha. I almost said the dance of the soul because Regan's here. So, welcome, everyone, and welcome to my two guests today. And it's Regan Forsten, and he's usually on Mondays with me, but we usually talk about hypnosis, but not necessarily in depth. Because we dance trying to balance each other off and negotiating those dances. So today we just thought, why not talk about hypnosis because it's so big. I grew up with hypnosis. My dad brought me to someone who did hypnosis along the way, and it did help me relax. I don't go into a normal trance like everybody else does. I don't want to call it trance, but sleep or whatever you want to call it. Going through and so I thought, why not? So many of us are going through trauma right now. So many of us are going through, why is this happening? And hypnosis is a good way to do that. I also know that Sue Snyder has been a longtime friend, client, interactive person in my life. And I've been so grateful for you because you used to proofread my newsletters, putting up with me, my dyslexic self. And so with and I've witnessed her I didn't know her at the very beginning of her using hypnosis, but I've seen her in the last, was it been 10, 15 years?
Wow.
That I've witnessed her going through so much healing, and hypnosis has always been her base, even though sometimes she'll come to me after hypnosis therapy or in between those moments, for the intuitive work. And I love to do the uh, meditations with Sue because she's so amazing going in, and it brings out so much into our sessions. So with that's where I wanted Sue because, I have the doctor here per se, and I have the client here per se that, it's amazing when you hear someone who facilitates it, but then nobody really sometimes hears how it does help. And I know Sue's gone through so much in her life. I'm not going to name it unless she does, but so much in her life that it does take sometimes that getting out of the body, getting out of the mind way to be able to negotiate through some of this trauma that she's gone through. And when we're going through life and managing our life, and Regan, I love how you are just the most gentlest, kindest man who can help people go through things because you don't feel judged. You don't feel angst and that kind of thing because you are just you've grown and matured so much in your energy to be kind and gentle no matter what anybody's going through to bring forth. So Regan, thank you for coming. And Sue,
You're
thank
welcome.
you for coming. I'm Natasha Venter, intuitive medium, a personal life awareness coach, wanting everyone to do better in life. I always try to lead people better than I find them and places better than I find them. So with that, Regan, you are a hypnotherapist through the Newton Institute. Plus, you're a therapist, anyways, but because you
Yeah.
help a lot of people through, PT. I wrote it in the column right. P.
PTSD. I have a hard time with that too sometimes. All these acronyms,
Yes,
post-traumatic stress syndrome.
syndrome. Yes,
Yeah.
that's why I checked it to make sure I was right.
Yeah. That's my specialty really. But the thing people don't realize, they think, oh, you deal with a lot of veterans. And I go, well, occasionally, but the rest of us out here, you don't have to go through a battle or something to get post-traumatic stress. That can come from something simple as a car crash or some sort. Maybe you got mugged somewhere, or you had somebody die unexpectedly, or anything that where it feels like a hand grenade goes off inside you, and just devastates you, and it's hard getting over it. And until recently, the only type of therapy they had, and Susan might remember this, she's gone through therapy through the years, the only type of therapy they basically had besides hypnosis was just talking therapy. And you go in and you talk about your issue, brings it all up again, and it seems like you don't get anywhere. But that can help in a way because you slowly desensitize yourself by talking about it over and over and over again. You know, it's like I always liken it to my brothers and sisters all went to medical school, and the first time they saw a cadaver, they fainted. Or one of my sister did. And then, oh gosh, after the second year of being there, seeing cadavers all the time, whatever, she's like, well, this is the heart. And this, didn't bother her a bit, because she slowly desensitized herself to it. And hypnosis does that sometimes too. Like when we used to have people afraid of, like, with phobias and fears. I remember one that came into the university where I was at, and she volunteered to get free therapy, and she was had a phobia of water. So it was like the first week she was there, it got her really, really deep, and we'd have her imagine just sticking her toe like in a swimming pool, and as soon as she would start to shake, he would back off and get her really relaxed again and everything. And he would just move forward little increments, until she's able to put in her up to her ankles. And then the next week she came back, she was able to get it up actually to her waist. And then I think about 3 or 4 weeks later, she was swimming, in her mind and not bothering her at all. Just slowly, like I remember the one with spiders where the person would imagine a little teeny tiny spider in the far edge of the room just coming into there, and then you back it off, and you just slowly desensitize to them. With hypnosis, you do it rather quickly, compared to just talking about it all the time. And Susan, let me ask you now that whatever you're willing to share, can you tell us an instance where you had an issue and how hypnosis seemed to help you get through it or deal with it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I sort of look at it as an overarching issue, as with my relationship with food, and it's still challenging, but I've definitely had times where I felt like I had completely conquered it. Um, and just that, sorry, Regan, your camera's making me
I'm
laugh.
sorry. I got this one. It doesn't quite. Okay. Hoping it stays there. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Go ahead.
But so, like some of the people that I work with would they would have me pay attention to like my triggers, what would trigger me to want to eat when I wasn't hungry. And so I would go into a session and we would feel the emotion of the trigger. Like first I would imagine the scene of whatever was happening. Um one that comes to mind very clearly is when my son was in elementary school and he had to do homework after school. He would sit at the table with me and just completely lock up. I called it, he would get rock brain is what I called it, because I didn't know what it was. So in the session, my hypnotherapist had me picture us sitting at the table, my son getting rock brain, and what happens is I'd get very frustrated because I knew he could do the work, and I would tune into the feelings, the emotions of the moment, and then she would regress me back in time to the first time I felt those same emotions. And what's interesting is when I would be regressed, what would come up would be a scene, and I'm sure you've done this a lot, and it would go back to childhood. And a lot of the times I would see an interaction like between me and my mother that would have nothing to do with homework or anything that was going on with me and my son, but just something that would be happening with she and I. And actually what the emotion was that came up in like I would see myself, for instance, at like 3 years old, and the emotion at that time was fear. So what I experienced in this moment as an adult with my son was frustration and anger actually was rooted in fear.
Mhm.
And the gal I worked with would have me basically like look through the eyes of my 3-year-old. She'd say, now imagine, put
Mhm.
yourself in that 3-year-old body. You are that child, and experience it from, that perspective. And I would say things like, I am terrified. My mom is really mad at me. And, I'm really scared, and this kind of a thing. And then she'd say, okay, now back out of the 3-year-old. Now be a wise adult viewing the scene like sort of your higher self perspective. But she would just
Mhm.
say, picture yourself a wise adult looking at the scene. And now how do you see it? And I would say, oh, I see it as that little kid who was 3 or 2 or whatever was acting age appropriately as a toddler. And what was going on was my mother, who was actually mentally ill, couldn't handle something, and her, like, she was in a manic phase, and because I wouldn't do what she wanted me to do at the minute that she couldn't control me, she would just flip out and go nuts and start yelling and screaming. So that terrified the little one. But as an adult, wise perspective, sort of overlooking the whole scene, I could see, oh, wait a minute, this is what's really going on.
Hmm.
And the neat thing is, in that moment, that new perspective would go directly into that little child, that part of myself. So my inner child in that moment would get this new perspective and go, oh my gosh, wait a minute. There was nothing wrong with me. I wasn't like bad or, whatever label I had created. That I wasn't that. I was just being me. And my mom was mentally ill and she was just doing what she did. And holy cow. And she would just let it go. And then all of a sudden she'd become so happy. And what I would notice is after a session like this, I would actually feel lighter inside.
Yeah.
I would feel happier, like just so happy. And the thing I didn't expect was the next time I sat down to do homework with my son, he of course had the, rock brain thing come up and
Mhm.
he'd sit there, oh God, I can't do this. Oh, all this stuff. Spoiler alert, I actually learned he was having panic attacks, but I didn't know it.
Mhm.
Anyway, when he started reacting, no frustration came up at all. I literally was waiting for it because that's what always happened. I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to get frustrated. I'm going to get mad. And this is going to do this whole cycle over and over and over. And there was no emotion. It was like I literally felt a hole where there used to be that emotion.
Wow, that's great.
I mean, it was gone. That was just, and because it was so foreign to me and so weird, I started laughing. And then he started laughing.
Wow.
So that's just,
See,
that's
so
just,
that's what you consider a very successful session you had because it was able to you're going down a certain path and it just altered it a little bit, and then all of a sudden you can handle what you couldn't handle emotionally the week before because
yeah.
you were able to reframe everything. Like we call it, like a lot of times, reframing things. And some
I,
people don't realize that we all have that capacity to look at things differently than the one way we're looking at things.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
did a
And
lot
then
of reframing,
yeah,
a lot.
wow, that's that's a good story about that. I know, like a client of mine that I had that she was about 200 and well, her real weight should have been about 130, but she was I think 214, 215, something like that. She tried everything. She'd yo-yoed back and forth and everything. And actually, I took her. She was down in LA, and I said, "Well, let's go to a nice outdoor place to do the session." So we ended up on a little hill overlooking the ocean down by Pepperdine University. So I put out a blanket, had a little something to eat or something, and then we just started brainstorming with her history and everything. And I realized she'd just gotten out of 2 very bad abusive relationships, And so, long story short, with a little talking and when she was in a deeper state and talking about her issues, she had put on the weight to try to keep herself, to try to put distance between her and men, you know, just a way, like a little protection there. She was a ballerina when she was younger, and of course, her to get up to that weight, she hated herself, But it was just that, in her case, it was just that, like you found out, your reason. Hers was, she was thin until she had abusive relationships, and then she didn't know what to do, so she put on weight to try to keep men away. So we got her on a
Mhm.
sensible diet after that, and then over a period of 2 years, she got down to about 135. She fluctuates now between about 130, 145, and then she gets back on again. and gets it down because she knows what to do now, you know. So it's just when you get the reason why to things, just like Natasha, right? When you help people and they get the reason why to things,
Mhm.
it's a game changer. You know,
It
it gives
is.
you power, you know, gives you power over your issue, you know. One thing, I was doing some more studying this week on the subconscious, and one thing that they said in studies is that when you get to an alpha state, which is a light hypnotic state, um, if someone tells you, would only have to tell you one time in the subconscious state to equal telling you 40 times in the state we're in right now, in the beta state. And that's how much more suggestible that people are. So that's why sometimes people, I know one woman who quit smoking, she went into this guy, she sat in a booth, a glass booth. He was on the other side. This is back about 30 years ago. And she would try anything to try to stop smoking. And she was 3 packs a day. And he just gets her really, really relaxed. And then he just shouts at her, "Stop smoking." You know, that's all he did. And then the session was over. And from that day, she quit. You know, she said 3 packs a day. That was all it took, is just someone to yell at her in a subconscious state, "Quit it." You know, I thought, oh my God. You know, some people would think, okay, then you give the guy $300, you know, or something, like, okay, this guy's got something going here, you know, making the money. But it worked because she was that suggestible in her mind that that's just what it took, you know.
Mhm.
We talked on the program before about the other woman we had come into the institute that had been there about 50. She was in her 50 or 50. I know it was coming up to 1 year. She'd been there almost every week, and she was starting to say, "Hey, you know, this isn't working. I'm still smoking." And then they said, "Well, okay, when you came in, you were 3 packs a day. How many cigarettes do you smoke a day now?" And she goes, "Maybe just 2 or 3 cigarettes a day." You know, so in other words, she wasn't as suggestible as some other people, but it was kind of still working, getting through.
Mhm.
You know, because some people expect a magic bullet. You come in and they think with hypnosis, you're just going to fall asleep, you're going to wake up and you're going to be a new person. But it's not that way, you know?
No. It does take personal awareness after a session, no matter what kind of session you have.
Yeah.
It could be normal counseling, it could be hypnosis, it could be a session even with me or someone like me. It does take awareness afterwards so that oh, I used to do this, you said, Sue, that you're aware. Oh, I used to do this. Here was an opportunity that I normally do, but I'm choosing to do different. And that's the thing about rewriting contracts, rewriting anything, or redoing something, is you have to be aware that here's a moment. Now, what am I doing different? And I want to choose to keep doing different. So when you notice that that pattern starts wanting to come back again, that you can kind of say, no, I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, you have to be really mindful because this happens so subtly sometimes that you just find yourself gently doing something different, and becomes so natural. You know, unless you're really mindful, it's like when you have a headache and you take an aspirin. Well, most people don't know exactly when that pain went away. All of a sudden it's later on and they go, "Oh gosh, my
Hmm.
headache's gone. I guess I don't know exactly when it went away," you know. So I don't know. Hypnosis has had a bad rap for years. Susan, when did you go for the first time? How many years ago was it?
The very first time was in the year 2000.
Okay, so 22 years ago. Yeah.
Yep.
There was a tipping point sometime in the 80s and 90s where hypnosis started to they started doing research on things and getting peer-reviewed papers come out and everything. I remember reading one was peer-reviewed about before people go in for major surgery, that when they had hypnosis, the statistics were they took a lot less
Hmm.
uh, drugs to go under, and they recovered about 30-40% quicker, and they had less scarring when they followed them down the road than people who didn't. So I hear all the time people come to me and they go, "Well, my uncle went to stop smoking, and he stopped smoking when he went to a hypnotist," you know. And people that have nail biting or bad habits or anything, it's just like going in to update your software. you know
Exactly.
yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
I was gonna say, if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
one of the things that I love about hypnosis is I address, like, I've been doing it for a while now, so I'll notice sort of like what I call dysfunctional patterns or things that I'll use coping mechanisms that aren't necessarily healthy habits. So I'll go into a session to address whatever that is. I'll just say, "Oh, I'm noticing that I'm doing this over and over,
Mhm.
and it's not really a good thing, so I want to address that." And so many times, like when I regressed, I end up seeing this scene from my younger life, and in the scene, the stuff that comes up it feels very traumatic. And even though, like, you were talking about traumatic events that can happen, like, throughout your life, you can have an accident or this or that. Well, for some of us, we grow up in households that for us are normal, because
Mhm.
they're the only thing we know. And
Yeah.
yet, when you step outside of that house and look at it from an objective standpoint or, from someone who's actually normal, you go, "Oh, wait a minute. There's a lot of dysfunction going on there."
Yeah.
And through a lot of these sessions, I've actually brought up lost memories and things that were just blocked out to go, "Oh, yeah, that was not okay, and this was not okay." Or just because I happen to be a very sensitive kid, something that looked pretty innocuous when I saw it in the session impacted me very dramatically.
Yeah.
Just like one of the thing like one of the sessions that brought up, like, the way I saw it is my trust in the world. Like, everybody has a certain level of trust in the world. That's just a human thing. And I happened to see an event when I was, once again, about a toddler. I wanted to play with my dolls. I wanted to do my thing, but the family was trying to have breakfast and get dressed and to get out the door to go do something. It was probably something like to go to church or something. And my folks were probably in a little bit of a mood that day. And my mother was like telling my dad to go get me, "Go get your daughter. She's got to come and have breakfast so we can go out the door to church." And from my little perspective, I was like, "I just want to play with my dollies. I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that." And my dad came to get me and he was mad, not at me, but I didn't know it. And he sort of grabbed my upper arm and was like, "Come on, you got to go eat, you know." And so, I mean, he wasn't being any different than any other parent. But in that moment, the way I received it was, this is the last safe person in my life.
Mhm.
And now he's not safe anymore because he was mad. And I thought that I had done something wrong.
Yeah. In regular therapy, even when adults come and then, we're talking about things, it's amazing how many things that they happened to them when they were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old that happened back in those days, which became cemented into their minds
Mhm.
as truth when it was really just some dysfunctional person. Like we talked about last weekend, I was with my Patty and I went to my granddaughter's my second granddaughter just graduated from high school, and she's going to go off to Paris for. She made it happen. I don't know how she did it. She did. Nobody wanted her to go to Paris because then she's far away. But she went behind
Mhm.
everybody's back. She got everything done, and we said,
She had
"Okay,
a calling, in other words.
we gotta go. We got to go with that." She's going to
Yep.
do that. But my ex who was there. At the time, and who's a beautiful human being. I was setting Patty, who's my significant other now, and my ex there, they're friends, and we were talking about things and just talking about what Susan's talking about stuff that happens when you're young, that just hangs on. And it was that simple thing. She was doing a math problem and she just couldn't understand it, and her father just couldn't take it anymore. And he says, "You're so stupid. You're never going to amount to anything." And so she remembers thinking when it was time to go to college or not, she just thought, "Well, I can't go to college because I'm stupid." I mean,
Mhm.
it was just like that's what her subconscious just told her. It was, later on in life, when I met her, she went back to school, straight A's, in college, but she had to get over that thing that was cemented in. So I tell my clients when they have children, I say, you got to be very careful what you tell them when they're young children, because they look up to you as a mentor in a way. And when you tell them something, it goes in as truth. They don't filter it a lot of times because they haven't reached the age of reason yet. So all those things, and Susan has been great because she's been able to go back and uncover some of these things and get rid of that, change the way, look at it from an adult perspective, and have that weight lifted off,
Mhm.
Well, I was say, and with my dad, he didn't even really say anything. It was just the fact that he was angry, and I was so sensitive that I was like, like I said, the way it came up at me was like that was my last safe person. So like my world was no longer safe, is how it affected me.
Yeah.
And after that session, I literally noticed, like, I wasn't quite so worried about safety. Like, oh, I don't really feel this need to lock my door all the time or like do these things. Like, I actually felt like the world in general was a lot safer place than I had my whole life.
Yeah.
So, and also I happened to uncover that as I was being walked through the process of changing, shifting the perspective and stuff, part of that session had my father and me facing each other, and we were trying to have like a reconciliation moment. And I could tell that he was trying to apologize, and my little one was trying to accept the apology, but there was like something was stopping it. And the person that I worked with at the time happened to have a spiritual practice, so she would bring in, um, beings of higher spirit or higher vibration.
Yeah.
She would just call for whoever, she wouldn't specify, and all of us so she just said, "Hey, we need some help. Some being of really high vibration, could you please come in and help us right now?" And all of a sudden, Archangel Michael showed up, and shazam, like, just stuff started happening. And like the forgiveness happened, the little one was released. And not only that, but I saw my dad, like he was standing there, and Archangel Michael had these beams of light shining, like one into his heart and one into his prostate, where he had had prostate cancer. And all of a sudden I knew, oh my God, this is why he had gotten prostate cancer. And all of a
Oh,
sudden, I
wow.
saw his dad, who also had had prostate cancer, and his dad, and his dad. And it's like there was this chain that came down through the men in my family. And I was like, oh, this issue of like not feeling safe in the world. Because I was
Mhm.
like, my grandfather did the same thing to my dad, and on and on. And this whole chain just got healed back, I don't know how many generations. And then I saw this beam of light shoot over to a cousin of mine that had recently had prostate surgery for
Mhm.
cancer. And it was like, okay, it's going over and healing him, even though he had already had the surgery. It was healing the energy of it.
Yeah. And that's
That's
And
that's the
great.
thing that a lot of us go through is that sometimes for men it comes out through the prostate if you're not producing the way that you want to. And for us women, it's either breasts. So a lot of women get breast cancer or uterus cancer,
Yeah.
because they're not being fulfilling their womanhood. And I'm gonna just squirrel a minute here. You're gonna see me squirm a little bit. I just came back from Florida through a very stressful weekend,
Oh,
and
yes.
I'm hitting about 8 o'clock their time, and I didn't sleep while I was down there, so I'm struggling a little bit. So if I'm squirming, it's not that I'm disrespecting you; it's I'm literally trying to get myself righted again.
Yeah.
So I apologize. I apologize. So let's go back to the other story.
I was a little sleepy too, but I got like 4 hours of sleep because we're getting ready because my significant other's having surgery tomorrow, So
Hmm.
going to be taking her in, but we had a lot of stuff to get done today. And I'm going to be, it's just, her brother, right? She just got so much going on at the moment, but she's handling it so beautifully. Her brother is just getting out of the hospital. He's got like stage 4 leukemia, and we have this addition being built on the house. So we've got all these contractors here and one problem after another that have the hoops you got to jump through. And she had some issues with her son this week, and my son's here because he's in between things right now. And there were so many decisions she had to make, and her business is going better than ever. She had put on 2 listings this week. And, here we are driving to pick out some windows for something for the ADU, or the additional dwelling unit. And she's dealing with somebody, telling them about these offers and everything. So she's gonna, just tomorrow, she's just gonna, I said, tomorrow's all about you, sweetheart. I said, I'm gonna take her phone and, take all the calls, tell people she's indisposed, for the next few days, and that I'll do what I can to help so she doesn't have to go through so much stress. Yeah, it's interesting to see, like, Susan, that experience you had. Before you had that experience, had you had any type of other spiritual kind of visions or anything like that happen in your normal life, or was that like an eye opener for you?
Well, I've had metaphysical events happen to me in hypnosis literally since 2000. Like each person I worked with, I would have like at least one metaphysical something happen. But in my waking life, no, I wasn't born what I would call psychic.
Yeah.
I've never seen spirit or any of that. Yeah.
It's a real
But
awakening. I mean, the 3 of us here can attest that angels, guides are real.
Yeah.
We've had, like, at the Newton Institute, 70,000 people that have actually on the other side contacted their guides, and so it just happens. I mean, I'm a huge believer in that now. But Natasha's helped me so much because I'm thinking, okay, the only time I can really get in touch with my guide or communicate with them is if I'm in deep hypnosis and on the other side, and then I can talk to them. But Natasha just goes, "Hey, buddy," And I was just realizing that they're right here all the time.
They're right here. Yep.
Just right now, if we're like, "Hey, you've got yours and she's got hers, multiples, and I've got my guys up there," and saying, "We're just doing this thing now," and they're probably up there just smiling and glad that we're doing this work.
Well, actually, you got Raphael that's sitting on one shoulder, behind one shoulder, and you got Gabriel helping on the other shoulder, so that Raphael's going to help you, Regan, through
Okay.
and through the surgeries and stuff tomorrow, and then
Okay.
Gabriel's gonna help you through the communication with the clients and what you're gonna have to do after she comes out of surgery, and just having that grace of knowing everything is not permanent,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. So you got 2 that are standing right here for you.
Oh, good. Hey, guys, shake my hands. Yeah. See, but it's something like, don't you think, Susan, now that just knowing that or something, as you go through day-to-day life, it just softens it a little bit. I mean, you still have issues and you have problems to go through, but they don't go to a 10 like what they normally would. They go maybe to a 5 or a 4, and you can deal with those. But there's still
Mhm.
issues, and you still have to deal with them. But just knowing that we're not alone down here is a huge, huge game changer, for
Yeah.
people, that way. So, that's that's really good. So I just wrote down Gabriel and Raphael's going to help me with one thing, and that's the thing I found out too with this with me doing the quantum healing hypnosis technique. When people are visiting heaven and they're there, I'll ask the council that's up there. I'll say, "Well, we have some health issues with my client right now that we'd like to address." And I said, "Can we ask her higher self to come out, maybe do a body scan, or do you have somebody there that would maybe be better?" And most of the time they say, "Hang on, don't bother the higher self. We got somebody right here." And then a different being will appear in front of my client, and they'll go through some sort of healing, which they when they're deep in trance, they really feel the energy, and they'll explain to me, "Oh, the light's coming in here, and oh, my shoulders are just, oh, it's so good," And
Yeah.
I've just had two of my clients so far. I've done this in the last 8 months. I've not had anybody have cancers and anything big like that, but they've had some improvements in their physical health. One of them even came by and showed me how she was able to, where her hands were kind of frozen before. She had really hard time moving it, and she was able to do this now. And I said, okay, let's just keep. I told her to listen to her recording, again and again because it's a couple hours long. And I said, that will help give you even more
Hmm.
healing, by keeping you in that space.
Is this person having a hard time gripping onto life?
Have a hard time what?
Gripping onto life, making the next step, gripping onto going forward, or
I
having a hard
don't,
time letting go
yeah,
of life,
that the
letting
letting
go of
go could be,
what's
yeah.
happening, the trauma and
She is
and that
so,
kind of thing. Because that's usually what hands are about. It's about
yeah,
either you're having a hard time gripping onto life coming to you, or you're having a hard time letting go of life.
yeah. Hmm. I don't know. I'd have to see her as she's um, someone is close to the family that had these health issues, and I just said, "Hey, I want to do a free session for you. Let's just see." I said nothing, and she was open to it. And she's a very devout Christian. She
Mhm.
would be the picture of the best Christian you'd ever know in your life. Just total, not judgmental one bit. Just love you, love you, love you, everybody. When you're just around her, you feel good,
Mhm.
because she's that giving. She's from Guatemala and
Hmm.
very, very religious. And when she was on the other side, Jesus appeared to her as a giant statue, about 50 feet tall, and just a statue, And she saw thousands of people that were rushing towards the statue, and as they got to the statue, they became like the statue also. The people that were just, clinging to Jesus, and then he became real and he bowed down to her and showed her how to be humble for her daughter because they were estranged. And he says, you just need to be humble with your daughter. And anyway, she's crying. I mean, it was such a beautiful thing to see. So that's what I love about what we're finding is that if you find a spiritual path that you really feel good about, that's probably exactly where you should be. Doesn't mean your neighbor needs to be there, doesn't mean that even your spouse or anybody else, but you found your place. Because people will ask on the other side, they'll say, "What's the best religion?" I'm going to join up with that, and they'll go, "Pick one, go do it."
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing about life, you know, I know for Regan, you've helped out people, you know, through sessions. What have you heard
There we go.
that like people who go into, like, we have the Ukrainian war right now. We have a lot of different wars going on. And we've had a lot of people who've gone through being, you know, in battles of
Mhm.
one form or another.
Yeah.
What is the theme through sessions that comes out as a message for people who are doing that job, doing that scenario? I don't know if I'm
Um,
asking that right question the
well, it
right
could
way
be a
here.
number of different things. Usually, not just the war, but when people go through something war-like, like a horrible breakup that they have, or something that's very, very traumatic that they have to go through. They usually find that it's either karmic, that they're just having to balance something out for something that happened in another lifetime, or they found out is something that they chose to come down and go through because of what they would learn from the experience, which is
Mhm.
usually more compassion or kindness or humility or something like that. So um, when people are going through difficult things and they find out the why, then it's a game changer again, because then they stop kind of bitching about it and cursing God for why is this happening to me, is they try to look at their difficult situation and, okay, I'm supposed to be learning. It's fusing with me. What am I
Mhm.
supposed to be doing here to learn something? And and then that seems to help. Like when I went up to the other side the second time and asked these guides and everything about COVID and everything, they were it was a kind of a non-issue over there, because in the
Mhm.
bigger picture, they said everybody that passed on, they're over here, they're partying, they're having, they're fine, in a sense. But just saying that a lot of times that the way the universe is designed is that the dark brings people to the light. They go through what we would consider dark experiences or not pleasant ones, and through that learning and everything, that somehow they come more into the light. And that's just in general. There's always the thing I'm finding out this. There's nothing that's every time it's exactly the same, but there's generalities, you know, of the things that.
Well, yeah, one thing that I witness through communication with the universe, it's like When I asked about COVID, they said it's like a speed bump. You're in it, you're out of it. Because the fact that for us, 5 minutes can last forever.
Yeah.
But for them, 5 minutes is,
Is
you
that?
know, it's nothing, and, like my child who was born 6 weeks after my dad died. Well, there was a lifetime that my father spent with my child, even though it was only 6 weeks in human time, it was a lifetime for them. And that's the story that we if we can remember as humans, is that whatever we're going through, it is a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And not to disrespect it, because it's very powerful. I know that this last weekend that I went through, it was pretty thick and pretty solid to go through energetically. Yet at the same time, I'm home. I just came home Monday, 2 days at work, and I'm like going, did I go?
Yeah.
Even though I'm physically, like my husband says, you never go to sleep before me. And I was asleep before him last night because I was so wrung out. But if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't know that I went,
Yeah.
because time went by so quickly. And it's not to disrespect anything, because
Yeah.
it is a
Susan,
moment.
do you
It is
find,
a moment.
yeah. Do you find, and now I don't know, I mean, the more people I talk to, it seems like I'm not alone in this, is that it really, really feels that time is like speeded up somehow. Like, I mean, weeks and weeks go by, and it's like if I had to think what I did 3 weeks ago, I don't know, it could have happened 5 years ago, or it could have happened yesterday. It just doesn't, and a lot of it,
Time's
it's because
getting
I'm getting older, but
yeah.
getting
Time
senile.
is getting undefined.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's because time has never been, the clock going around. It's never been 1D, it's never been. It's actually very up, down, in, out, upside down, flipped around, whatever you want to call it. And those of us that walk in the time of no definition, the clock may say 12 o'clock, but really, is it 12 o'clock?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Regan, I'm not in a good position to answer that question because for the last 5 years, I've been going through a very, very intense Kundalini awakening. And a lot of the time, I don't feel like I'm even in my body and I'm not really present, which is actually a super uncomfortable feeling. So when it comes to time, some
Maybe
days,
maybe that you just answered the question, maybe, because if we're all, if we're going through this this higher awareness kind of thing, we're kind of getting closer to the no time zone, you know,
Mhm.
in that
I
way.
know, like, just before the energy, well, for me, the actual, this goes right back to hypnosis. The energy cracked open after I had a hypnosis session where during the middle of the session, I had a very unexpected, I call it a major shift in consciousness. I feel like my entire perception turned around 180 degrees and popped up a level. Now, I can say that and it means nothing to most people, but it's kind of like if you're playing a video game and you get to the end of the game and you think you've mastered like the entire game, every level, and it's taken you like the past 2 years of playing every day to master that level. And you get to the end and all of a sudden this door opens and says, "Surprise, this is just the beginning."
Yeah.
So I hit that in early 2017, and literally within days, this energy in my body just flew open, and
Yeah.
it's been roaring and vibrating and churning ever since. And what it's doing for me as I received the information from my higher self was I'm healing duality. That's how
Mhm.
they put it. I'm healing duality. Basically, I'm healing what I call the human condition,
Mhm.
which everybody has. And I'm just healing it very deeply through multiple lifetimes, which is pretty intense, but also very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing too. It's not, people think it's like all fun and dandy, when you get these awakenings, but it's just what it is. It's like going from high school to getting a doctorate. I mean, you get out of high school and you go, oh, and then all of a sudden, wait a minute, I got to do this. you know? Um, yeah,
And everybody's path is different. One person can say they have a Kundalini experience, and it's going to be so different than Sue's. Just like, me, regaining the alignment of myself is going to be different for me because of my interactions.
Yep.
yeah,
And
and,
see, you've been through this, but not the same as me.
Me,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And that's the way that hypnosis is also, to come back to that conversation. That hypnosis is something that everybody thinks that it's that hypnotizing on the stage, and
right.
it's not. It's becoming in a comfortable place. I'm sorry if you guys hear my dog barking. In a comfortable place, in a comfortable moment, you know where you're feeling relaxed and at ease,
Yeah,
in a way that. And the reason why a lot of people cannot go into hypnosis is because of trust. They
right.
don't trust themselves to go there, or they don't trust the person that they're with to go there.
Yeah,
And I'm going to even say, add on the trust of their belief system, that they can open up to it.
yeah. Yeah, I found an easy way to explain. I think to me, it seems the easiest way to explain to my clients. I say all hypnosis is, it's like the process of falling asleep. I said, you're going to lay down. We're going to just, instead of falling asleep normally, like when you go to bed at night, we're going to just do it on cue in a way by relaxing your body. And I said, if you could see your brain waves, I explained the brain waves thing. Like right now, our brain waves are real close together. When you get to alpha, they're a little further apart. And then theta, they're like here. And I said, just when you're between the alpha and theta state, where you're just about to fall off to sleep, because I'm communicating with you, I'm going to keep you in that state, right on the line between
Mhm.
falling asleep and awake. And I said, that's all that it is. It's just being really, really relaxed. And like, if you're the type of person like the guys in the old West that had to sleep with one eye open because they didn't want a critter to get him at the night, or a bad guy to come up and shoot him, it might not happen. You just have to just let it go and just relax.
Mhm.
And that's why in a session, I spend sometimes 2.5 hours in the interview part of it before I put them in hypnosis, just to get to know them, to build rapport, to build trust. And for me to really get to know them, so that when they are deep under and they're doing this life between lives thing, I know about them more, so I can help facilitate to keep them on track, to get the work done that they want to get when they're over there. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, hypnosis is just, it's just, in hypnotherapy school, they taught us how to hypnotize people the first weekend, and then I'm there for a year and a half more to trying to figure out, now what the heck do you do once they're in trance, because people are so easily, if they allow it to happen, it's just, I would say anybody can, but not everybody is willing to let themselves go into
Mhm.
hypnosis.
Yeah,
Uh,
as I say, I know it took me working with a few different people. Like I would work with someone for a while and reach like a certain state of like, okay, I've made progress, and that was great. And then maybe there was something that just wasn't quite right, or a situation would happen, and I would stop working with somebody, and then I'd find somebody else, and things would go well for a while, and then it doesn't quite, not the right match.
mhm.
And then, like, maybe 2 years later, I'd be like, "Yeah, I think I wanna try this again," and I'd find somebody else and work with them, and what was fascinating is, like, it seemed like each person I met with, like, there was something that had to come up while working with them. Um, like I said, I would have a metaphysical experience with these different people, and with some of them, that wasn't their training or any of that, it just happened. And I'm learning that for me, I kinda look as at my life like, "Okay, here's my soul up here going, okay, you're gonna do this in your lifetime, and you're gonna find this thing called hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and it's gonna, like, be magic for you. So, you're gonna dip your toe in it at this time, and then at this time, and at this time, and at this place, and with this person." And then as the energies of the world are changing and rising and everything's vibrating higher and higher, you're gonna go up with it all through using hypnosis.
Yeah,
And you're gonna heal all this stuff, and you're gonna, you know, change and become amazing. And then we're gonna really say, okay, now it's time to do that PhD work. The world needs you to be doing that PhD work.
Well,
It's
Susan,
just
you're
like,
probably, if I'm guessing in this lifetime you came down here to work on get rid of a whole bunch of stuff. You know, it's just like dumping. I know that was me for sure. When I look back 30 years and who I was then and who I am now, people would not even, if they saw me sitting next to here and how I would act and talk and everything like that, they would think that's not Regan. That's a different person. Right?
bravo.
Yeah, exactly. Good job.
Yeah. Like you say, you learned a technique so you didn't fuse and get angry with your son. You're helping him with homework. That's a huge thing because that translates into how you deal with everybody, not just him. So in a way, your son helped you to get to that point because of that, that button heads kind of thing, type thing.
Yes, I've witnessed Sue, going through some major ordeals with someone, and then all of a sudden it kind of fizzled out because of all the back work that she did through the hypnosis to get
Yeah.
herself to where she was more into interaction with the situation and how to clean it up and to close the door than react to it. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that's nice about doing spiritual work, i.e., hypnosis, intuitive work, counseling work, whatever you can call it, that a lot of times that path will lead us more into a oh than a about it. Seeing the bigger picture. And that's what I love about getting guidance from the universe, however you do it.
Yeah.
Because when you get guidance, I know for Regan, you've talked about sessions with people with integrity, and you don't necessarily talk about the depth of them, but there's just those little things about how it's like, oh, that's why. Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense now.
Yeah.
And Sue, I've witnessed that in you too. It's been amazing to get there. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's amazing what you can accomplish when you're not constantly flying into rages wanting to kill somebody.
Yeah. Right.
It's like they made, and the irony is like they may deserve it, but I found that I'm able to move through life with a lot more flow and ease and grace when I'm not just locked up with anger and just rage and all of that just lovely stuff.
There's a signal that you can go by as far as realizing that you are progressing a lot is to see just how much more quickly you get back up on the wagon and move forward from things. If you do screw up or something like that, it's pretty much real quick. You get back on and move forward, instead of being in the mud all over you for months and months. You just like, oh, okay, I goofed. Let me get back on the wagon and move forward,
And I'm super quick to apologize these days. Like
Wow.
if I upset somebody, whether it was inadvertently or whatever, these days it's so easy for me to go, oh, wait a minute. I said something that upset them and I didn't mean to. And I can just be like, I am so sorry. I did not mean to upset you. That was not my intention. Can we move on? So, and whereas I used to just lock up for, I don't know, a couple of days of not speaking to this person that we would have this upsetness between us and we would both shut down and not talk to each other for a couple of days. And now it's like 10 minutes and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to upset you.
Yeah.
Even though that person hasn't changed at all, just my being able to do that, like everything gets better quicker.
Yeah. We all need to help change the world with everything going on right now, but we can only just do it in our own way, one little decision at a time. Like the sign that I've said a number of times on the show that I love, my favorite bumper sticker is, boy, how you've changed since I've changed.
I love that.
Isn't that beautiful? It happens. It's like Susan, when you have these things happen, even though you didn't know it, when you walked in a room, the energy you put out, the light that you were able to shine would just change. People would just feel nicer being around you, or and you wonder what's going on. Everybody being so nice to me, and I'm not doing anything. Well, I think it's this energy that we carry. When because we pick. That's the thing, was we're realizing now that our energy is. It's maybe on a different spectrum, but if we could see the energies of people walking around, we could see the dark energies, and we could see the people that have the more light, and we would find ourselves wanting to gravitate and get in that aura of that light of those people, that we need. So yeah, we all need to do what we can, what we can do. One more thing, because it's almost been an hour almost already. I can't believe it. This is such a nice time. I'm so glad Susan was on today, because I always see you and watching the show, and you'll chime in, but to actually get to converse with you is wonderful.
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh gosh. Now, sometimes what we found, one benefit of hypnosis, or what Natasha does too, is that a lot of our issues and problems come from something in this lifetime, something we've experienced. And that's why regular regression is good, to go back and try to find it. But sometimes we go back, we can't find anything. So then for the clients that are open to it, then we say, well, if you're open to it, maybe it started before this lifetime, and for some people, that's the key, because it's really deep. Some of the issues are really deep rooted, and so it's like going back to an even deeper root and kind of seeing what happens. And I think I mentioned even last week, it was just a quantum healing hypnosis technique person who had this big scar on her neck, and then when she went to a past life, she realized she was hung, and her just having that realization, a few months later, she sent a picture of her neck, and her birthmark had completely disappeared.
Wow.
Wow.
Isn't that powerful? That just shows you, what can happen. I know Ian Stevenson, for people watching this, if you get his books, he's passed on now, but he did a book about the correlating sometimes people's birthmarks that happen to do with some way that they died in a past life.
Yes, that's very true.
Sometimes that's like look at that thing, and that represents a memory from a past life or something. I always wondered, because I have my whole arm, I don't know if you can see it, but see how it's red in here? It goes all the way from here, all the way up to my shoulder. And I've never really noticed it, because I've had it my whole life. But other people, when I was a kid, they go, oh, did you get burned or something? And I go, no, just a birthmark. So it got me thinking, like, what could that have been? Like I put my arm into something it shouldn't have and got burned.
Somebody put something in your arm that shouldn't have been.
Really? Is that what you get? Oh, cool. Well, I don't know about cool. Yeah, look at it, it's like it's not burning now. What do you see, Natasha?
That you were in a situation where, I don't want to call it like World War II, where you're a Jew going into. It wasn't like that, but there was something about a scenario that was somewhat like that back a little bit earlier than that.
Like a battle of some sort?
Yeah, where okay, yes, it was during like the Civil War, or one of the wars like that, and somebody tried to do an IV on you, and it poisoned you instead of helping you.
Oh, wow. See, that's the one thing I haven't. I was meditating one day. I had my back against the back, in the bed there, against the whatever you call the headboard. And I mean, it was the only time this ever happened in my life, but it was just for a second. It was like the back wall completely disappeared, and I'm just lying on the ground, and it's so noisy. There's cannons going by and rumbling and bombs and everything going off, and I'm on the ground. I'm looking up, and there's a guy, I think, in a blue uniform that's just going, this, go there, go, whatever. And then the wall was back. But I swear it was like I was actually there. I mean, I can't explain, except it was like the most real, and it would just happen so quick. It was like
that's the dimensional walk. You just went through a dimensional walk.
Yeah.
And that's being more in tune with yourself. It's in tune with your soul. That you can do that a little bit easier, and that is a truth. It wasn't that time, it was the time before that.
Okay.
That you've been on the war field a couple times.
Yeah, I remember running up to a fence, and I can tell you what it feels like to get bullets hit you right here. Because it hit, and it feels like a sledgehammer. It just hits you right here, and then the body starts getting warm. It just goes out from there. And I don't know if I died in that, but I remember having that vision of being, And I thought, wow, I know what it feels like to get arrows
Yeah.
in another lifetime. Dang, I don't know if I was the bad guy or the good guy or what. I guess it doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't really matter because it's perspective
It's out of my
anyways,
life.
because when you're the bad guy, you think you're doing the right thing. So
Yeah,
it's all perspective.
yeah.
That's what it is. It's all
It is.
perspective.
It is. Well,
Yeah,
think
it's
of it
one of those
right
things.
now.
But that's my husband was saying, sweetie, you're getting kind of spacey. I go, yeah, I'm doing all this dimensional walk and everything like that, and I'm trying to be here, but it's not quite working because life is happening around me. So
Yeah. I'm
we're
thinking
all
of
getting a little bit
the
more that
soldiers.
way.
Let's say this, the Russian soldiers right now, that they believe that the Nazis are in Ukraine, and they're going to, they're going to go help people to rescue people that really want that to be part of Russia. And so they're going in with, thinking they're the good guys in a way, a lot of
Hmm.
soldiers. And then, that doesn't look like that's actually what's going on, but I, it's just, you can be on what we could see the wrong side, but you could be going through a perfectly, good intention thing.
Well,
Uh,
Hitler thought he was doing the right thing.
yeah,
And now, was it or wasn't it? It depends on what side of that story you're on.
yeah,
And that's what's going on in this government too. It's in our United States. We got one side that believes the one thing, and then we got the other side that believes the other.
yeah,
It's called coming together and coming to a neutrality. And I'm hoping that when we see the bigger picture, going through hypnosis, going through some kind of intuitive work, or just even opening our eyes to the reality of this world, that there is two sides to a coin, but maybe we can put the coin upright to be able to see things in a different perspective.
yeah,
Because the coin doesn't have to lay down and only see one side of the coin. The
right,
coin can actually be up, and we can turn the coin to see both sides, the heads or the tails.
yeah.
You
I
know?
tell you, my life would have been a lot different. I was unable to see both sides of a coin for a long time, and that
Mhm.
caused me a lot of problems. And once I started realizing, it's like when they say, put at least one foot in someone else's shoes, for a little bit, just to see their viewpoint. And so many times later on, I go, God, why didn't I see that? I would have reacted totally different if I knew what was going on.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
And I can tell, like with Sue, all the healing you've done, it's been changing the perspective, you
Quite a
know,
bit.
and the perception on how to manage it, whatever, because both definitions, it's kind of a flip of the
Yeah, I was
coin.
gonna say, since I've been very through my own healing sessions, I've been learning quite a bit about what I call the human condition, basically, just like where we're different as humans than we are in spirit. And, it
yeah,
creates all the unconscious beliefs and all the behaviors that spring from them. And nowadays, I'm able to just know somebody like my family members, and I can go, "Oh, that's why they act like this," or, "Oh, that's why they're doing that."
Hmm.
And where a lot of the, emotional triggers have been healed, I'm not just reacting and getting upset or whatever, and even a lot of not not only upsetness and anger has left my life, through all this work, but a lot of, grief and sadness has left as well, which
yeah,
was super helpful after I lost both of my parents.
Hmm.
So,
yeah,
yeah.
Exactly. So we are up on sadly, the 5 o'clock time frame. And I want everyone to know that no matter where you're at, please reach out if you're having troubles with life. I know that, with Sue and I, that, we talk to each other when, hey, I just need a perspective, and it's a blessing when we can reach out and get assistance in dealing with what we're going through, especially when you're going through a major spiritual awakening, that it's nice to talk to someone who might have that understanding, so
yeah.
that it's like, am I really going crazy? No, you're
I
really
know.
not. You're
Yeah.
not.
Isn't that something, Susan? Like, there's some of your friends and stuff you can't talk about this stuff with because they just don't get it, and you feel silly, but it's nice when you can be with people that are on the same page with that. Goes, it's freeing in a way, you can just
Yeah.
talk about it.
Well,
Mhm.
I'm not a spiritual seeker, I've never been one. I didn't grow up in a community that, like, my family wasn't spiritual, and this is all new since my mid 40s. So people that I have known and my friends and whatnot, I mention things and they just look at me like I've just spoken some foreign language.
Right. But, you know, I think is being a light worker in a way, even just saying it in passing. Like I know there was a point when I was probably like those other people too, you know, or people that were spiritually advanced, and they would say something and I'd go, oh, that's weird, you know, but where I am now, you know, oh, that's weird. You know, stuff. So I think it's just like with our children, you just gently, you know, if you have children or younger people, and you just, sometimes I'll just mention like I'm golfing and people ask me what I do, and I'll just give a short thing. And sometimes they go, okay. And other times that's all we're talking about for the rest of the round. I mean, you never know who's ready to learn. And I'm glad people have that patience with me. You know, when I was asking questions, and I'm still asking questions now, just different ones, you know. But we're all here to help each other walk home. That's the favorite saying of Richard Martini. You know,
Yep.
I've been using that. You know, he has a show where he has a medium, like he does like what Natasha and I do. And he's got a couple documentaries out on the Newton process and on mediums and stuff. So it's, he was just on Coast to Coast. They did a whole couple hours with him. And I think they even, from that podcast, they made something on Gaia right now. Do you subscribe to Gaia at all, Susan? GAIA?
I don't, just because I'm so cheap.
Yeah.
But I get a
Well,
lot of things through the just like through YouTube, and I've read many, many, many books.
Gaia is like the place where you'll find documentaries and things that talk about all this stuff openly, and it's amazing what you can
Yeah.
learn. Some people I say, well, just do it for a month and just kind of binge watch a lot of things on there, and there's so many things on mediums there, things on, you know, aliens, things on metaphysics, all the different studies and research going on and stuff that's kind of linking science with metaphysical stuff now. I mean, it's really
Science
cool.
is catching up to what us intuitives always known.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. Because I used to be a science major in college, so I totally love that.
Yeah, let me hold up this book for people watching this. This is a great book. And this is kind of a bridge between what we're talking about and you know, it's like everyday ESP. This guy's from the 40s and 50s, and like over 1 million people have taken his courses. He's passed away, but someone else is carrying on out. And it's to teach people how to get to these, to walk around and to spend some of your time in deeper states of consciousness, you know, to walk around. He says you want to make your decisions in the alpha state, which is that balanced state, and then act on it in the beta state, which is where we're on now. So, you know, because most people do both here in this state here, but you don't get all the information that you can get if you learn how to, you know, to relax, you know, learn how to kind of walk around in a semi-hypnotic state during the day, you know. So I'm only about page 60, but it's great so far. And it's basically using the techniques that I use with my clients to get them to past lives. And if Susan, if you're reading it, you go, oh yeah, that's kind of like what my therapist does to get me into that state, you know. You know, it's good.
Well, I think it's time. We could talk forever,
I
but
know.
it's time for us to go back to our reality lives.
No,
And-
Yeah, come on. Susan, you're awesome. You know, just, you know, get to maybe once you've gotten through this week with listening to all the stuff that you're listening through, and then maybe in a month or two, why don't you tell us what lesson you learned or didn't learn? You know, like, and I'll be able to talk about what I learned from going through having a significant other going through the fear of cancer and dealing with it, and you know, how does that all affect, especially with this higher viewpoint. It's still very emotional. That's what some people don't realize. They think just because we seem to have some kind of connection with the other side that we get a free ride on all this emotion stuff, but no.
oh
Sometimes it's even more, I think, because the more your heart is open, the wider it is open, there's more stuff can get in there to challenge it, you know.
Exactly. Well, like for me this last weekend, that, you know, my father-in-law really didn't know that I was a medium. He didn't understand it.
Really?
And now that he's on the other side, he's like, oh, you have this little nifty gift, don't you now, my dear?
Wow. So,
and
wow, great.
and so, I was the messenger for my father-in-law to his family, my mother-in-law, the sister-in-law, all these people. And it was, unless you, I guess, a medium, it's hard to understand what that felt like, you
Yeah.
know. And it was, I'm gonna call it exhausting.
Yeah. So even though it was family, you were able to connect
Hmm.
with him. Did,
Hmm.
did did that? How did your husband feel about that? Is that too private?
Um, no,
Did that help
I,
him?
he, no, not yet. I mean, he's in his own way of dealing with grief,
Okay.
and so there wasn't that dance yet.
Yeah.
We're working through. It's just been since April, so it's still pretty raw for
Yeah.
him.
It is
And
that way sometimes.
yeah, and
But
so
sometimes I don't like to see clients for to help them with their grief until they've actually done a little processing.
Oh,
mhm,
A
yeah.
couple of months or something, and it kind of settles down. And then if it's still too much grief, because grief is normal, like we've talked about before, it's normal. Everybody goes through it. And but then there's an abnormal amount of grief that happens that I mean, I had a client, I called a prospective client. She needed to some help with grief. And I said, well, how long ago did your husband pass away? And she said 16 years. And it shocked me. I go, wow. And she still has not gotten over it. So I said,
mhm.
okay, we need to do
Mm.
something here. You know,
Yeah. And
uh,
it's not wrong to be grieving after 16
no,
years. What's not feeling as balanced is when we're still stopped.
yeah. And
And grief is meant to be walkable.
and it
Grief
was
is meant
good
to
that
be movable. And
yeah,
it's not disrespectful to be, I mean, my parents have been gone almost 30 years now,
yeah.
and I still grieve them like yesterday, but it's movable. It's palatable, and
Palatable is a good
it's,
word. Yeah. It's
and
not, it's,
walkable.
it's
So
just like you
it's
say over and over again, the grief is just unexpressed love. And
mhm,
when you keep it in that framework, it's just a warm other feeling, in that way.
mhm.
So I'm glad. She called me about being, regular grief therapist. So I felt at a point that it was okay for her to mention. I said, we can approach this two ways. We can approach it the regular way with tapping and hypnosis, or, we can go the spiritual route. And, and she says, what do you mean spiritual route? And I explained a little bit. She goes, oh my God, when my husband died, he was in my dreams a bunch of times, but I didn't think that was anything. You mean that could have been really him? And I go, yeah. Just
Definitely.
telling her that gave her a sense of relief right there. That was validation that what she saw in her dreams was actually him saying that he's okay, instead of it's just a dream or something.
Mhm.
So
It brings it down to palatable. It brings
yeah,
it down into knowings and that kind of thing.
yeah.
So, what a wonderful moment to leave this show because we're going to be going on
Okay.
and on.
I mean, we could talk
Maybe
forever.
we could talk about that on Monday,
Okay.
Regan, about how you know the process of grief and how we can move through it. But we'll work on that.
Okay.
So, thank you, both of you. This was a
You're
blessing.
welcome.
I'm so grateful that
Yeah.
you were here to support me through my I can go to sleep at any moment.
We're gonna walk into town. Because her surgery's tomorrow. She's gonna have her last meal before surgery, not her last meal. But
Thank
uh,
you for wording it that way, by the
yeah.
way.
Last
Words
meal
are
before
huge.
surgery. Right. You got to be careful what you say. I'm finding out.
Yes, yes,
So we're
yes.
gonna walk into town, do that, and have a relaxing night, and then go do it in the morning. So
Yeah. Sue, thank you. And blessings to you on your journey. May this moment in your life that you're going through be something that will bring big ahas for a lot of different people. Because you made
Thank
a
you.
statement about that he had an experience, and many times when we don't know how to deal with an experience, I don't want to name it, but because I don't know if you mentioned it on air or not, that when we have those experiences, sometimes we either dive into something we know, or we try to talk through what we don't know, or there's something. So hopefully you being your spiritual self can maybe help him wake up a little bit.
The one, sorry, you lost me there.
I know, I apologize.
Well, I was
It's
going
all
to
right.
tell her too that one thing that may help a little bit is with this issue you're having problems with. Um, Mock up him. He's a salesman coming to your door that just goes on and on and on or something. And instead of slamming the door in his face, just take some nice pie and some ice cream out of the freezer, have him sit down, give him some food, and just say, "You're annoying as hell, but you know what? I love you, man." Just to take and just picture him just stuffing with pie so he can't talk as much. He can just watch him, something comical or something.
That's
And you think
perfect.
of an image like that when he starts doing that, you'll just smile and go, "Okay, come on,
Yeah.
have some pie."
That's perfect. Thanks, Regan.
You're
That
welcome.
was perfect. That was perfect. Well, may the spiritual awakenings help him to become a little bit more gentle with himself.
Yeah. And just you being there without you saying anything, and just if you're doing the Ho'oponopono, I love you, thank you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, I love you, thank you, please forgive me, I'm sorry. That'll keep you from going down the rabbit hole. It'll keep you right there at the hole, but you're not going down. And just laugh about it a little inside. At least at least you're not marrying the guy and you're going to be that way for 40 years. It's just it's just a treatment. Because I know I have to deal with that myself sometimes, and it's difficult sometimes.
So
And
Regan, how do people get a hold of you?
Oh yeah, right on the screen there, visittheafterlife.com. And anybody who sees this that goes to my site, you can request I'm giving away actually 2 free books right now. Depending on when this is, it's always 1, but maybe 2. Just go on the contact page. One of them is all the latest research on reincarnation. It's called Reincarnation is Real, an ebook that's got videos and everything that's really cool. And then the 3 hours, 33 minutes in heaven. It's about my experience on the other side when I had a life between life session. And I work with the Newton Institute. We've discovered a process that allows practically anybody to visit heaven for a few hours and come back. And you have a list of questions. There's a counselor you get to see. There's so much stuff. And you'll find out the information on my website, visittheafterlife.com. And also, I'm happy to help anybody on Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. Hypnosis can work just as easy online, even over the phone. It can happen. If it depends on your suggestibility, but with a lot of people, hypnosis works great. Just like with Natasha, she can do her medium work with you over the phone or Zoom. So
you
anyway,
had somebody, Sue, in Australia that you worked with.
I'm currently working with a hypnotherapist in Australia. Yeah.
Okay, so you're doing it on Zoom or on
Skype? Yeah, same
Skype,
idea.
right? Same thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, it works. She knows that it works. So people go, "How can that be?" Well, it does.
It does.
It does.
I don't know why exactly, but it does. Just take our word for it, because we've had it happen hundreds of times. Yeah. But I do regular therapy besides the spiritual therapy. If you're listening to this and what we're talking about is a little too much for you, then regular therapy, we're great modalities we're working with right now that are good for anything that might be wrong with you. We can help you to get to the other side and get some of your semblance of normalcy back in your life.
And Sue, thank you again for coming. I know that you don't have a website and all that kind of.
Well, can I share one of my blogs?
I would love
got a
you
blog,
to.
Yeah.
I would love you to.
Yeah, Regan writing is actually my form of meditation, and I've discovered that. And so I have one of my blogs has been following my healing journey. So if anyone's curious to find out like what hypnosis has done for me specifically, as well as using other healing modalities, it's a WordPress blog called Remembering My Divinity. And if you search it, you have to put in WordPress blog because search engines are funny. But it's I think the actual address is My Peace Now. I don't know if it's dot or slash WordPress.com.
My Peace Now.
Yeah, that's all together. And I'm like I said, it's either a dot or a // WordPress.com.
Okay.
I think it's I should have written it down. Sorry.
Well, it's funny you're drilling. One time, Natasha, for a session, we could talk about, I'm a handwriting analyst also. We could talk about how subconsciously when we write in cursive, how we put our personality on the page.
Yep.
It's another thing that people think that's woo-woo, but now it's almost, I'd say 90% accepted as science now, because there's just been too much proof out there, and what I could do is have, I guess we could hold it up. Since we're doing this video like this, I could have everybody write a sentence, and then, all three of us, we could hold our sentences up, and I could tell you, what we look for. Like when people are hiring people and they want to make sure they're not going to go postal on them, or that they're not a serial killer, which you can tell sometimes in the writings, or if they happen to be people that don't tell the truth so much. But we can show people what things are. People find it fascinating. I mean, I'll do that at a party sometimes just for someone's there, and before I know it, everybody wants to have it done. It's fascinating about how our subconscious, we can't, some people, sometimes our subconscious, people that can read people's faces and their body positions. It's the same kind of thing. Your writing tells your personality. We can't hide who we are.
We can't. And it was funny because when we arrived down there in Florida, that, when I signed my initials for the renting of the car, each one was different. And I went, and then now that I lived through it, it was like, oh yeah, I was kind of three different people while I was down there.
Well,
Wife, spiritual person, trying to be myself.
Yeah. Here's just one quick thing you can tell about a person when you look at their signature. If you look at the initial of their first name and the initial of their last name, one of them generally tends to be bigger than the other. You think, they'd be just, but that usually means that that's more who they see themselves as. And sometimes it's a last name, and sometimes their first letter is like huge and their second letter is very, very small, although I did find out one time the reason was she had a big first letter and a really tiny second letter. And I just asked her, I says, are you thinking of getting a divorce? She goes, how did you know? I said, looking at your writing, like her last name, subconsciously, she wanted to get rid of it. So if she had a subconscious, she would have a really tiny, letter in that. Yeah. And it was just showing her.
Sorry to interrupt. I looked it up for you, Regan. It's mypeacenow.wordpress.com.
Oh, you got to put .wordpress.com.
Yep.
Not /.wordpress. Okay.
Yeah, no slashes. I was wrong.
Well, how good of you to share that with people. That's what people need to see, because we're all going through stuff, and to see someone else that's on the team that's working on something helps everybody else.
Exactly. And I wanted to say that I'm having a class coming up on the 23rd. Please sign up for it, because it is not on Facebook. It is going to be on Zoom. And you can find it on Facebook. I sent it out in an email, and I'm going to repost it again in Facebook and that kind of thing. So that all you need to email me is natasha@angeliclarifications.com if you're interested to get the Zoom link. I am going to be teaching Feng Shui.
Oh, really?
How Feng Shui and house clearings can change your life. And it is true. When you Feng Shui and you do your house clearings, your life can be changed.
Yeah, that's how I designed my office, where I'm like facing the door instead of my back to the door. Just a simple thing. And I'm all the time tearing out plants in the garden that are dead instead of just leaving them there.
Yep.
Feng Shui, just in other words, getting rid of that.
I know. I noticed that my area that's in my knowledge corner in my yard, I'm like going, oh my God, there's blackberries and grass and very God, no wonder I can't concentrate. I'm always concentrating on the marriage corner, not the relation or the mental corner.
Yeah.
So with that I would love to do that. So it's June 23rd at 6:30 to 8. It's an hour and a half. It is free. So I am asking for a donation, but it's free because I want people to be able to negotiate their life differently. So please, please come and be a part of it. But I know, why can't I have it on Zoom on Facebook if it's free? Because of the fact that I want logistically keeping it safer for us to be there. So if people wanted to share something, that it's not on everywhere.
Okay, now I'm gonna test your something here. Spell Feng Shui.
Feng and then Shui, Shui.
Shui. Okay. That's what I mean. That's how I learned.
Feng Shui. Feng
I can't do
Shui.
Feng Shui, but I could do Feng Shui.
That's how
Shui.
Kathy,
Feng-
Kathy, who proofs
Feng Shui.
my stuff, she's like, Natasha, it's Feng Shui. I go, oh, okay, thank you. Now I got it.
All right. Sounds like a good class.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank
So
you, thank you,
when you
thank
post
you.
this, that gives a few weeks for people watching this to hear about it and to
Mhm.
sign up. Awesome.
Yes, yes,
Okey
yes.
doke.
Blessings to everyone. Please, if you're looking for getting help, reach out either to Regan, Visit the Afterlife, or to me and jollyclarifications.com. Blessings. See
See you all
you
later.
next week on Monday at 4 Pacific time and Wednesday at
4 Pacific.
4 Pacific time. Thank you, Regan. My mouth is, I think I need to go lay down because my mouth is not attaching to what my brain is trying to say.
Yeah. And I'll just be sending, I know Patty's going to have the angels there too, but if you happen to think about, I think I take her at 10:30, probably around noon or 1, they'll be doing the operation, and just send an army of angels there because I really care about this woman.
I bet.
All right.
Okay, we'll talk to everybody. Bye.
All right.
Right.
Bye.